Hi, ATD participants. My name is Eran Lasser, and I'm the CEO of Biwa Tech, a company that specializes in reskilling of tech professionals. The world is lacking tech professionals. This is a fact. I will talk about this in my presentation. And one of the options to fulfill this gap is by reskilling of people into tech jobs. I am going to take Israel, the startup nation, as an example of how reskilling and vocational training succeeds to narrow the tech skills gap that exists in the market. So let me share my screen and have the presentation. I hope that you all can see my screen. As I said, we are going to talk about the vocational training and the reskilling, and let's deep dive. So I hope that you all can see my screen of the presentation. So let's deep dive. So I've started my tech career years ago at the Israeli Army. I was enrolled to the computer training center, which is called Mamram. I know this is a difficult word to say. At the age of 18, and I've been certified as a computer programmer. Actually, I know how to program in C and C++. You know, there are ancient languages. And after I've been certified as a computer programmer, I've took the road to the tech education. I was responsible to all the training of young professionals in the Israeli army. After I got out of the Israeli army, I established a company which is called John Rice, which is today the largest IT training center in Israel, and had activities in China, in Turkey, in Azerbaijan, and today in Ukraine and Georgia. And throughout the years, I've been involved with over 50,000 individuals that have been trained and reskilled to the tech jobs in Israeli army and beyond this. A little bit about Biwa. We partners with local partners to establish tech training center that specialize in training and reskilling of local workforce into the high demand jobs in the regions. And by this, we are helping to narrow the skills gap in a specific country. So what is all about? There's a lot of surveys in the world, but one of them is from Microsoft. I think it was something like 2 months ago, that predict that in 2025, there are going to be about 149 million new jobs in the tech industry. If you're going to deep dive into this amazing number, you will see there is 98 million new jobs of software developers, 23 million of cloud and data roles, 20 million in the data science, machine learning, AI, 6 million in cybersecurity. You know, just these days, only in the States, there is about 1 million cybersecurity jobs that are lacking. So there is not enough professionals out there, not today and not in the future. And the other aspect is that there is a gap between the current skills and the required tech skills. One of the well-known fact is that graduates of university, as an example, doesn't have enough required tech skills to work as productive tech professionals in the industry. I want to get into the case study of Israel. and explain to you how we dealt with this issue in Israel throughout the years. So first of all, let's get to know Israel. You know, Israel is the startup nation country, as we call it. A lot of well-known companies have been established in Israel. Mobileye, now part of Intel. Waze, now part of Google. SanDisk, uh, Checkpoint with all the security. Pilcam in the medtech, and a lot of companies actually from the foundation of the startup nation. There is about 18,000 startups exist. Every year there is about 6,000 startups that are exist today. And one of the nicest sites that I use all the time to explain and to understand how the startup nation is evolving is Startup Nation Central Finder, which is a nonprofit organization which anyone who is interested in what's going on in the startup nation is invited to look into it. You will see that from this, this is from, I think, today or yesterday, there's about 6,600 companies exist in the database. These are the startups that are now exist in different funding stage. And just to give you some ideas about the status now in Israel, from the beginning of 2020, in the COVID era, we are going to raise as Startup Nation about $10 billion. This is more than 2019. You know, when you're looking at Israel, this is the number one nation in the number of startups per capita. Just imagine that in Israel, there is about 9 million population. This is it. It's the number one country in the numbers of R&D professionals per capita. About 140 people are dealing with R&D out of 10,000. 10% of the working population is dealing with tech. It's an amazing number. It's the number one country in the world in VC investments per capita, and number three in Nasdaq listed after United States and China. This is the Startup Nation Finder. But it's didn't happen overnight. So Israel became Startup Nation within 30 years. It took 30 years of heavily involvement of the government, which started with incubators and accelerators. And it took 30 years to become where Israel is here today. 25,000 tech professionals are still needed in the market. And this is an amazing number itself. You know, there are 400,000 people that are working in the tech, as we said, 10% of the workforce, 100,000 R&D talents, but still 25,000 are still needed. And the problem starts with the universities and the academia that only graduates about 6,000 per year. Imagine only 6,000 in the computer science and engineering every year. So it's obvious that we have to have more sources for tech professionals in Israel to fulfill the need. So the number one talent source that we have in Israel is the army. And you can look at the right side. This is my right. You can see myself, handsome, tall, with hair, at the age of, I think it was 20. So this is me at Mamram. My personal story is that I joined Mamram at the age of 18 as a typical Israeli youngster. You know, every Israeli youngster, boy and girl, should be in the army. So I've been spending in the army not 3 years, which is the compulsory service, but I've done 7 years. Because when you're entering Mamram, the computer training center, then you have to sign up for another 4 years. So I've been in the Army till the age of 25. At the end of the day, I was heading the IT training all across the IDF. And like me, there are hundreds per year. This is the foundation of the startup nation. So every year, hundreds to thousands, I'm not giving you the right number, but hundreds to thousands are graduates of the Israeli army, and these are the foundation of the startup nation. But Israeli youngsters start their journey with tech earlier. In Israel, kids start to code even at the age of 7. There is official government initiative which called Skills. You can look at it and Google it. It's called Skills with the Z. It's a training that is subsidized by the Ministry of Education and the Innovation Authority. It starts from the age of 7. Every year, over 350,000 participants, students in more than 2,000 schools are participating in extensive math, coding, makers, robotics, etc. activities. So we are starting early. Another example is the Code Monkey software, which is used by Israeli youngsters in schools to learn how to code. It is an Israeli startup that is, I think, 2 or 3 years ago acquired by a Chinese edtech company. There is a lot of emphasis in high school, in matriculations, electives, in software engineering, in cyber, biotechnology, etc. And one of the nicest programs that exists for high schools is that the IDF itself is teaming up with schools in Israel to have cyber prep programs, which at the end of this program, graduates, and again, these are the age of 17, the graduates of these programs can easily enter the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, to be as cyber professionals. So these are just an examples of how we do this in Israel in the K-12 area. Moving to the academia, and again, remember that in Israel, youngster is coming, or young adults are coming to the academia at the age, the earliest is at the age of 21. So in the academia, we are trying to focus on the readiness of the graduates to the employability needs. So there is coding bootcamps that are offered to students in the second or third year of the university, together with internships in tech companies, gives the graduates a real experience and give them the opportunity to find jobs at the end of their studies. These programs as well are approved by the Ministry of Education. These are programs that are part of the official learning in the universities. Another aspect is the do-it-yourself tech training. And of course, all of us are well aware of the online courses, the MOOCs, etc. And in Israel, of course, it's a hit as well. But from our experience, it is mainly used as upskilling, not reskilling. But nevertheless, if you can see, I think this is one of the latest surveys from Udemy. It's shown that in Israel, it's in the 15th place and the number 9 in the top learners. Okay, it is used, it is widely used, but again, usually not from total reskilling, but for upskilling. The mainstream supply for the tech market of professionals is by the tech training centers. These are the companies that I was involved for years. We're specialized in reskilling. It means we know how to take a person who doesn't necessarily have an academic degree or a, an experience in computer professionals. And after 6 to 9 months of intensive program, which is a little bit of imitation of what we are doing in the army, we are geared through employability. We are using government support. And by these programs, we can have in Israel more than 7,000 graduates every year. This is more than universities are bringing to the market. And the great advantage is that the graduates are job ready. The employability options are very high. And actually the statistics is about more than 70% of the graduates of these programs are actually employed in the Israeli tech market. So if we are giving just as an example, my company, or Biwa, we offer programs which actually take a person who has no specific knowledge in computer and tech. We sit together with the person, we see what his favors. We have assessment tests that predicts in which job role he will be good at. And at the end of the day, he's coming to one of these programs. It can be either coding, full stack on front end. It can be either user experience. This is a different job role. It can be cybersecurity specialist. Again, different job role. Online marketeers, a different job role. DevOps specialist, product manager, etc. All of these programs are not short programs. It's not a 40 hours course. It's not a micro credentials. It's 250, the minimum, to 450 hours. It's take evening courses or days, 6 to 10 months. But at the end of the day, you have job ready graduates that can find jobs in the market. But where do you find the talents to reskill? We have the programs, we have the ability, we know how to do this, but you have to find the talents to reskill. So I will share with you some of the ideas that we had in Israel with specific examples. One of the nicest examples that I've been involved, and there exists in Israel, are companies that reskill people and then transform them to be software developers. One of the nicest ones is Talpiot. Talpiot is, it's a name of a program in Israel that take highly religious women in a specific location, geography location. It's take these highly religious women that usually are working in an environment which emphasize their needs. We built a specific center for these religious women. We've done this program of software development, a long program. So we trained these women to be productive tech engineers. And this company, Talpiot, in its peak was more than 1,000 women. Another nice company that we can talk about is Galil Software, which takes another population in the north of Israel, Arabs and Jewish together, in a rural area in Israel, in the north. Again, we reskill and then employ this population. These programs are, again, these are only examples. These programs are heavily subsidized by the Innovation Authority. They are very popular in Israel. There is a lot of PR and IR in this for these programs, and I'm very proud to be part of it. Another angle is companies that take young adults and get them into tech. One of them is called Big Idea Gap Year. We are aiming for young adults from abroad, bring them to Israel, get them reskilled in a 4 to 9 months programming courses or programs, get support from the Innovation and Immigration Authorities, it's called MASA, and then place them into internships into companies. Very nice program. Another program is called MASA Tech. We are looking for computer science graduates from abroad, get them into Israel, upskill them in the programs, and then find them jobs in Israel for 2 years. Again, a lot of ideas that brings people that are existing outside of Israel and get them into Israel. Let me share with you a short video about Big Idea Gap Year.
You should come live here for a year in Israel because it's a great place to discover more about yourself and who you are.
We're taking courses in a variety of programming languages so that by the end of these first few months, we have the skills required to design our own websites and our own apps. And from there, we're going to take these skills and move on to internships at startups here in Israel.
We have been to many high-tech places in Israel, like the high-tech park in Beersheba and various other smaller startup companies.
Living alone, cooking for yourself, and just finding out more about who you are as a person.
Everyone that's coming here without families in Israel creates a family right here in Big Idea.
If you want to be in the front row, if you want to make an impact, build our future, your place is with Big Idea Gap Year.
Another nice program to talk about is a company called Beta Program, Be in Tel Aviv. By the way, this is Tel Aviv Shore. This is the area where I live. So this program, it is an alliance of Israeli tech companies, SimilarWeb, Nextel, WeWork in Israel, companies that are approaching computer professionals from abroad, bring them to Israel for relocation, and then get them to stay in Israel for a while. Another source for reskilling is the 40 plus, 40 from the point of view of age. Two major initiatives that I can talk about. One of them is called Age and Work. It's aimed for people that are over 40, help them to reskill themselves and find jobs. Another one is Mirage Future 45, which is aimed on 45 plus people and try to get them to make their own startup, technology startup. Amazing program. Another initiative is called Magalim. It's initiative by the Ministry of Social Affairs in Israel that's get money to companies to reskill their employees. Employees should have at least 20 years of experience in a specific job in a company. Then he is entitled to upskill himself in the company to tech. So we are doing QA, network, mobile programming, etc. for all of this population with a lot of advantages for the potential employer. The experience, the loyalty, the ability to focus, the resilience, a lot of pluses. So if we take all of these aspects together, the army, the boot camps, the training centers, the 40 plus together with the government support and the ecosystems by the industry, we have the solution to the skills gap that we have in Israel. And this is what we are doing for years. Even today in the COVID area, the Ministry of Innovation just launched a new fund to develop human capital in tech, and a lot of funds are now involved in these initiatives. And from my experience, it's all over the world, these ideas. So as a summary, what can you do about the skill shortage? So if you're a university or a training center, a language training center, first of all, I urge you to offer a tech training programs. These tech training programs should focus on employability, on job-ready graduates. And in this way, you will help the local ecosystem to close the skills gap. I hope I gave you some ideas and help you to understand the concept of skills gaps in the tech job roles. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed. My email is written here, eran@wawiwatech.com. Thank you very much and see you. Bye-bye.